U.S. President Donald Trump has pulled his country out of participating in the World Health Organization after differing hugely with that organization's views. However, this move may be moot as it's scheduled to happen only at the end of the year after the November presidential elections. By that time, Trump could well be out of office. Will his handling of COVID-19 be the final bell for the U.S. president? Well, joining us for this conversation, Brooks Spector is the associate editor at the Daily Maverick, and he's with us now. Brooks, good evening. Thank you for your time tonight on The Pulse. How big an issue is the U.S. President Donald Trump's response to COVID-19 going to be when Americans go to the polls in November?
Oh, good afternoon. Good to be with you. COVID as an issue is one of three things that are intersecting, and that between the three of them, Donald Trump's popularity and support are hitting a wall. Let's be quite clear about this. COVID's one thing, and the population is thoroughly, depending on who you are, spooked or confused or disconcerted by the rise, once again, of the number of cases, and the fact that the death toll continues to rise. It's now over 130,000, which is extraordinary when you think about it. That's more than the number of people who died during the entirety of the Vietnam War, Gulf Wars I and II, and the Afghanistan action. And pretty soon, I guess, we'll be able to add the Korean conflict number of casualties in that as well. So this is obviously playing on people's minds enormously. But there's a lot of confusion as to whether or not the reopening of summertime activities, the beaches, amusement parks, and so forth, are in fact causing this great rise or are simply an adjunct to it. But the second issue, of course, is the economy, and with over 11% unemployed, which is a staggering number in the United States, and millions upon millions of people applying for unemployment compensation, roughly UIF in America, and the failure of many small businesses to be able to reopen, and medium-sized enterprises going into bankruptcy in some cases, this has been a tremendous impact on people. Trump, curiously, still in polling, gets reasonably high marks for his handling of the economy, and that leads to a bit of a head scratch there. But the third issue, of course, is also out there, and that's his response to the general, let's call it Black Lives Matter stroke police actions stroke unequal treatment. And between the three of these things, COVID, the economy, Black Lives Matter, this has really made it very difficult for Donald Trump to show to voters that he is the one who should be reelected. It's one thing to run as an outsider, I'll fix stuff, when you're not in office. It's entirely different when you have to run on your record, and your record looks like a failing report card. But to go to your question about the World Health Organization, which I guess you also want to touch on, for most Americans, that's a rather peripheral issue. It's been used as a bit of a punching bag by the Trump administration, that because the World Health Organization didn't nip the virus in the bud, that they covered up for China, and that they were in league with China, or whatever the charge is now. That may work well with some people who are Trump supporters in the first place, but for most Americans, it's a non-starter of an issue. They're more concerned with the other three.
Brooks, do you think that when retrospectively Americans reflect then on COVID-19 and some of the subsequent decisions that have been made by the U.S. president, will that be enough to tip the scale at all? Is there any indication at this point that President Trump could well be on his way out?
Oh, Cathy, you're forcing me to give predictions, aren't you? Let me put it this way. If the current circumstances of the virus, the economy, the tumult over civil rights and police actions, if all of those continue without resolution in any substantive, satisfactory way. And if Joe Biden, his obvious challenger, doesn't stumble by making some sort of terrible public gaffe, mistake, a speech which simply doesn't work, or if there's some sort of terrible damning evidence that comes out about Joe Biden, if none of those things happen, the polling all indicates that Donald Trump is a one-term president. The polling, however, is national at this point. And what we really need to look at, as you and I know, because we've been down this path for a couple of times, you have to look not just at the national polling, you have to also look at the individual states, and especially those states which are in play, in which the supporters for Democrats and Republicans are usually easily matched. And because America has this strange electoral system where it's like you have 50 separate elections and the weight of each state in population goes to the winner of that state, and then if you have enough of those, you're elected, it really comes down to a race in about 6 or 7 places. Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, Arizona. Is that 7? And if Joe Biden wins 5 or 6 of those, Donald Trump gets to retire and go back to Trump Tower.